Ho, ho, ho! The Bureau Boys is an improvised detective serial. Every Monday, the Bureau Boys solve crimes based on clues sent in by their Elvinformants.
That's you! Go to thebureauboys.com to submit your clues, Elvinformant. Ho, ho, ho. Thanks to Informant Blair for this week's clue for the case of the Rotten Reindeer Ranch. Homework.
When we last left the Bureau Boys, they were in the sub-basement of the Bureau, where they had just gotten a message from a new Elvinformant, Phil. Phil and his poor mother-in-law were 45 minutes outside of Hill Valley in a neighborhood just outside the Rotten Reindeer Ranch, or that's what the kids call it.
We don't know what the real name of the ranch is. That's for Detective Potter and Detective Riley to discover on their own. They are the detectives after all.
Maybe they can find out from Detective Riley's finger and toe GPS system. I assume he is also like Google with his fingers and toes.
Speaking of Detective Riley and routing a course to the Rotten Reindeer Ranch, the boys are close at hand, arriving just outside of the location where some awful smells are smelled by the neighboring townsfolk.
Don't you mean naughty smells?
I do. They are pretty bad. And depending on who you talk to, it kind of sounds like Mommy and Daddy were just in their bedroom for a long, long time.
Okay, Detective Riley. There's no time to mess around. Let's just get right to this case.
Whoa! Whoa, boys! Whoa! Yes, sorry, Detective Potter, I couldn't hear you over the stampeding of these wild beasts.
Thank God you started that herbal garden in the back of the Bureau, because I started growing carrots. I don't know if you've even noticed because you're probably high all the time, but I started growing carrots because you have those fluorescent lamps, and it actually helps them grow really well. So I brought a bunch of carrots too. I know I didn't mention it when we were packing up back at the Bureau, but I also brought carrots for these reindeers. So here you go, boy. I'm sorry, not reindeer, horses.
Listen, well, I didn't tell you this, and you probably noticed, obviously, I did affix their little heads with tiny little reindeer antlers, the fluffy ones.
Is that why you packed those up for this investigation? That was a great idea, Detective Riley.
Yeah, I got the fluffy ones. I still have my elk antler, but I also affixed all of our horses with different fluffy reindeer antlers. I figure it's apropos.
Well, they look amazing. You guys look amazing. Detective Riley, should we name all of our horses?
Yes, of course.
I mean, I know we have named all of our horses. Should we name them out loud?
Yeah, in kind of a sing-song fashion.
Yeah.
Gets their spirits raised, and since we are parked, it's better for them to be happier as we depart from the sleigh and leave them alone.
Because there's Lancer and Fancier, Banter,
and Bancer,
Lantern, kicks in after the weed brownie hits in, if you know what I mean. Detective Riley, you named him.
Kixin and Hitsin.
And then just one more. What was the last one?
Mitzen, of course.
Mitzen. Oh, you're right, Mitzen. And then, do you recall my favorite horse of all?
The one that we left back at the Bureau?
Yes. But that's why he's my favorite. I don't want to make him drag our carcasses around, Detective Riley, especially not to the Rotten Reindeer Ranch.
He's the only one that we actually keep in a stable. The rest of these
are unstable.
Yeah, we leash them at the tree. You know the tree outside of the Bureau.
Of course I know the tree.
The one spare tree that we have.
It's across from what used to be the boulder that was a tribute to Ryan Stiles. I know. Ryan Stiles Sr., of course.
Yes, Ryan Stiles Sr., now also the resting place of Gloria Greenwich.
Okay, and so our last, of course, horse's name.
Yes.
I keep wanting to say reindeer because you put these cute antlers on top of them, but Our last horse's name is, of course, Ass.
Yes.
Horse's ass.
After naming the horses, the Bureau boys dismount, feeding each one a single carrot, for that's all they get a day. Otherwise, they're spoiled.
You know, do you think that maybe the Bureau boys should be maybe feeding the horses just a little bit more because they're starting to look a little bit gaunt?
Everyone knows you keep a horse hungry, it works harder.
And so do the Bureau boys.
Detective Riley, you are always peckish. I'm even a little bit peckish watching these horses eat, but we cannot mess around. We have work to do. It's the holiday season. These smells that are only going to last for so long, Detective Riley.
Oh, and speaking of that smell, it is assaulting my nostrils right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're picking up that... It's
Eggnog?
like,
Eggnog.
Yeah, but it's
But
not
bad
just
eggnog.
eggnog. Yeah. It's like eggnog that you made with spoiled eggs and then you left out in the sun.
So you double spoiled the... It's like a twice-baked potato, Detective Riley. You double spoiled the eggs. You spoiled them before they even went into the eggnog. Detective Riley, do
Yeah.
eggs actually go into eggnog? I guess I don't know how to make eggnog.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, because you need the egg, and the nog is a separate ingredient that you add in after stirring up those eggs.
Do you think that was spoiled too?
Yeah, the nog actually spoils very quickly.
Detective Riley, do you think that smell is coming from that big old cauldron over there?
Detective Potter points in the direction of a giant black steel cauldron resting on top of a bunch of wood.
And the wood has been slightly burned down, and the cauldron seems to be bubbling, roiling, and toiling and boiling.
Roiling and toiling and boiling and toiling and roiling.
Those were all rejected names for the Bureau boys' horses.
They rejected them because they were the same names repeated over and over again.
Detective Riley, that fire is... the cauldron is still hot. Look at it. It's
Yes,
still steaming, so...
And you could see the fumes coming
Yeah.
off of it.
Absolutely. I can always see fumes. You're talking about smoke, right?
Oh yeah, but this smoke is looking pretty dark in nature. Not the usual smoke you see from your ordinary cauldron.
And it's also not the same kind of smoke that comes from our dumpster fire that I really wish you would let me not reignite.
You want me to stop you when you try to reignite it?
Yes, that's what I said.
Because I'm much weaker in terms of physical strength, so
That's true.
I have a much harder time stopping you. I'm just gonna say this right now. It'd be very helpful if you had some sort of self-control and were able to restrain yourself.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that when we're back at the bureau. Okay.
Right.
Yes, Detective Riley, though, this cauldron is still lit, okay? Well, I mean, it's still lit, it's still hot. So whoever was boiling this cauldron, unless they're a very, very irresponsible ranch owner, must have just recently left.
Well, and look around. I mean, there's no one out here. There is a stampede of tracks leading from this cauldron up that hill towards what I can only imagine is a ranch, since it's a building with no second level.
That's a good call, Detective Riley. This was a stampede, and I've already taken a cast of one of the hooves, and you can tell by the angle of the hoof that this was an animal that made this.
Okay, that is important information, because I wasn't sure if this was a man with hoofed-shaped feet at first.
Like a satyr?
Sure, Detective Potter, sure. Now, my elk antlers are hollow on the inside, so we could take a little dip into this boiling cauldron and inspect the liquid.
Okay. Quit saying it, just do it.
So, first, Detective Potter splits his elk antler in two so that Detective Potter could have his own antler and Detective Riley has his own. They both dip their antlers into the cauldron, being very careful not to get their fingers in there because this is boiling. hot.
Now, Detective Potter's antler, since they split the one in two, is basically just a tube, so he's having a hard time keeping any liquid inside of the antler.
I'm so sorry, Detective Potter. I don't know
It's okay.
why these damn antlers aren't. You know, it said right on the Amazon description.
Yeah.
These antlers will hold any liquid you put inside of them.
I don't know that if you can modify them in this. You know what, Detective Riley? So Detective Potter pulls out his bag of pixie dust, which he suspects is just glitter. He also has a little bit of super glue. He mixes a mixture of the super glue plus the glitter and sticks it at the bottom of his antler. The Bureau boys wait the requisite 90 minutes for the super glue to harden. As they do, they share tales about their childhoods. Detective Riley's is horrifying. Detective Potter's is horrifyingly strict. But the Bureau boys spend this time bonding with one another. 90 minutes pass, and Detective Potter has himself also a totally waterproof, sealed container.
Narrator, I just want to point out before we get back to the boys that was a great yada 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 moment. Okay, let's get back to the boys.
And yada yada yada, that's how my parents got married.
Right. Oh, wow. Okay. So, right. Well, I'm sorry. I really do feel for you.
Yeah, it was a bloodbath.
Just me, it explains a lot.
Thank you.
Well, hey, tap, tap, tap. It looks like these antlers are ready.
Yeah, these are set. Okay, so now we're both going to take a sample, and we're both going to do our own separate thing with it, right?
Hey, don't talk about it. Just do it.
So Detective Potter scoops out some of the boiling liquid into his own half reindeer antler. He holds it up to the light and looks to see if there's any sort of naughty or niceness emanating from it.
And Detective Riley takes his elk antler, narrator.
Well, sorry about that. I just would have thought it would have been a reindeer, considering the time of year.
Well, Detective Riley's bought this in the off-season, I'm pretty sure.
Probably at a discount. He waited until elk hunting season was just over, and then he bought up all the spare elk antlers.
After Detective Riley dips his elk antler in and takes a small sample of the boiling liquid, he closely examines it to determine its internal qualities.
Narrator, if both the Bureau boys only needed a small quantity of the boiling liquid, why did they need to split the elk antler into two and waste all this time creating a watertight seal for the second part?
That's a question you'll have to ask Detective Riley. Right, so it doesn't look like there's anything unusual about the liquid apart from the fact that it's very smelly, it's very dark, I don't want to drink it, and there seems to be little bits of fur.
Agreed, Detective Riley. And let me tell you something about that fur, because mine also has some fur in it as well. And from the smell, from the texture, from the consistency, and from the length, I think I can assure you that this fur is from an animal.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I'm going to be honest here and tell you I did not think at first that it was animal. I was thinking straight human, child.
Detective Riley, I wish you would stop trimming your beard over both of these elk antler potions.
I had to get a quick trim in. It's kind of that time of year. And we were sitting around for 90 minutes.
That's true. That's true. And you could have done it at any point during that 90 minutes. But instead, you waited until we actually had something that could be, I don't know, fouled by your beard hair. But it is not your beard hair. It's not human hair. I can rest assured that it's animal hair. And so Detective Potter walks over to one of the horses and plucks a tuft of hair from his backside. Detective Potter holds up both samples of hair and compares the two in the light. Detective Riley, this is not horsehair, but it is a cousin of a horse. And as you know,
Donkey
Detective
hair.
Riley, there's only... What?
Donkey hair.
That is exactly right, Detective Riley. Good job. There's only one known cousin of a horse, and that is a donkey.
Do zebras count
As what?
as like second cousins?
Zebras are sterile, first of all, Detective Riley. And second of all, they are ugly. And everyone knows in the animal kingdom, if you're UGLY, you ain't got no alibi.
If the good looks don't fit.
You must have quit?
Yep.
Is that what you're going to say?
That's what I was going to say.
Okay, good. I'm sorry I stole that then.
All right, so I think we're okay. So those donkeys are the closest thing we got. That makes sense. And it was mentioned by our informant who left that voicemail message.
Phil.
Yeah, Phil.
Why do you always forget people's names almost immediately after learning them?
No. I don't forget.
You don't forget. You must have quit.
I just want to make it clear. Phil is the one who left the message on the voicemail, and so
Yes.
I figured I would just cut out the middleman and just say the guy who left the message on the voicemail.
Yes, that made it much more clear. Okay, what were you saying about the... Phil?
He mentioned that the smell smelled like wet dog, and we can see with our own eyes that there is the hair of a donkey.
Donkey. Detective Riley, I think you're onto something. A donkey. Detective Riley, wait a minute. Donkey. That makes me think.
So Detective Potter pulls out a very outdated veterinarian school book from his backpack, which he's been wearing this entire time. He flips to the page on dogs and donkeys.
Detective Riley, it says here in this veterinary book that dogs and donkeys are two of the most closely related, but you would never suspect it, species that exist. It's like when you're like, oh my God, I would never guess you guys were brothers or sisters. It is that for dogs and donkeys in the animal world.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is blowing my mind because that means that since donkeys are the cousin of horses and dogs are so closely related to donkeys,
Yes, go. You got it. Go.
horses are rideable dogs.
Okay, that's close. Yes. Most importantly, Detective Riley, reindeers are related to dogs by the transitive property.
Yes, because reindeers are simply the magical horses.
Yes. Yes. So, Detective Riley, whatever was in this cauldron, which, by the way, is boiling over, is clearly related to Phil's point that this smell was spoiled eggnog and wet dog. It's from this cooking recipe, Detective Riley. Wait a minute. Speaking of cooking recipe,
So Detective Potter finds a piece of paper sitting next to the cauldron. The piece of paper reads, "Homework assignment. Find one of your grandmother's recipes and transcribe it."
Detective Riley, look at this. It's a recipe.
Yeah, and it's written in the handwriting of a fourth grader.
Exactly right. And it specifically mentions the fourth grader's grandmother, Grandma Ginny's.
Graham.
Yes, 2 grams of eggnog go into Grandma Ginny's recipe for rotten reindeer.
Reindeer stew.
Detective Riley, my name is Potter, not Stu.
No. It was right there at the very end.
Oh, I see.
When we said Rod Reindeer.
Stu, S-T-E-W,
Yeah.
which could be short for Stuart still, but my name is not Stuart, Detective Riley, just so you know.
No, I totally get that part about you and your identity.
I even remember on the gift that you got to me on outside of the jewel bag, you wrote to Detective Potter, not to Stu.
Yes, because I definitely know your name. I know who you are.
I definitely know who you are too, and I'm getting to know more every day.
Let's take a drink of this cauldron,
Okay.
and then let's head up to that ranch, because I feel like we're not going to get all of the evidence unless we ingest it.
Detective Riley, can I just really quickly point out that this stationery that this recipe homework assignment was written on
Yeah.
is not from here.
No, it's not. This looks like it was printed on some sort of skin. Hide.
Detective Potter holds the paper up to his nose and takes a big whiff of the aroma.
You're right, Detective Riley. This is skin. And it's not...
Detective Potter tastes the skin.
It's not human skin.
Let me take a taste.
Detective Riley tastes the skin himself.
Yeah, definitely not human, but not quite rabbit or cow or fox.
Detective Potter pulls out his veterinarian book once again. He leafs to the index and finds human, comparisons to. He flips to the page that is referenced in the index, as any good index user does.
Detective Riley, human comparisons. Right here, it says that we are most closely related to elves.
You mean Santa's slaves? Oh, brother.
That's exactly right, Detective Riley, but I don't think we can use slaves anymore.
Right, Santa's indentured servants.
Correct. Yes. Detective Riley, did I already mention the letterhead of this letter?
No, please, read it out loud.
Well, the letterhead of this letter says that it's from the orphanage. The Hill Valley Orphanage.
Wait a minute, the Hill Valley Orphanage. That place...
Is 46 minutes outside of town. 1 minute away from here. What were you going to say about it, though?
That it's poorly run, probably needs some more funding, and all the kids I know that ever came out of that place... Well, come to think of it, I've never known any kids that came out of that place.
I was going to say, Detective Riley, I don't think you're allowed to hang out with children from the orphanage. Or adults that came out of an orphanage, because at one point they were orphans. And we just don't want a headline, Detective Riley hangs out with orphans.
Listen, I have a checkered past, but I am going to beat that case. The system is rigged against me. Anyway, this is opening up a big mystery.
Detective Riley, I think we need to go to the orphanage.
Before we head up to that creepy ranch?
Yes, because I feel like every time we get a clue, it leads us to a new place.
You're absolutely right. Wait, hold on. Okay, you're right. I have a bunch of theories about what the hell is happening right now, so we should just get to that orphanage, which I think is like a 6-minute walk east.
If it's a 1-minute drive at approximately 60 miles an hour, yes, I think it's a 6-minute walk.
Well, put on your boots and tighten your belt, because we're going to the orphanage.
What will the Bureau Boys find at the orphanage?
Are the orphans really human, or are they elven?
Or are they dancers?
Will either boy use another tool from their big red sack?
Will the Bureau Boys discover the weird confluence of odors that's coming from the cauldron? Will they learn anything more from the samples that they took in their elk antlers?
Tune in next time on the case of the Rotten Reindeer Ranch to find out what the boys discover at the Hill Valley Orphanage.
If you're enjoying the Bureau Boys, be sure to go to thebureauboys.com to subscribe, rate, and review, and to tell all of your friends and family and loved ones in this holiday season to love the Bureau Boys.